Let's start the show. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me, I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FB Show, we are continuing our All-32 NFL team preview series, breaking down every single NFL team through the lens of fantasy football. We only have 12 more to go, and we are going to start off today with the AFC East and the New York Jets. But before we get started, a few quick things from you. First off, smash that subscribe button, power running back style, so that you never miss a video. We're pretty much doing this almost every single day, all the way up through the end of August. I believe my deadline to have this series done is August 31st, so we're cutting it close, but we are on track to do so. Secondly, smash that like button, hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield, Patrick Mahomes style. And last but not least, a little bit of a new addition here. You can follow me on all social media platforms at FF Vulture. We're pretty much putting out content over there every single day, either whether it's just, breaking news or opinions or random stats that I find interesting. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as long as TikTok doesn't get banned anytime soon. But that's a different conversation for another day. Instead, we're going to be talking about the New York Jets, a team that I low-key love this season. As always, let's start off with the quarterback position. Sam Darnold. This is the prove-it year for my man. I am low-key a Sam Darnold stan. I believe he is a very talented quarterback. We've seen glimpses of it. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, he hasn't been able to put it fully together. Year one, he just didn't have the weapons, and obviously when you are a quarterback, weapons play a big factor in your success. Number two, he caught mono last year and missed a handful of games, and obviously when you recover from a virus, is it a virus? Is mono a virus? Mono's a virus. When you ironically enough, when you recover from a virus like that, it's going to take some time to get back on your feet. And really, once he was past it, he did have some very good games later on in the season. So we're going to talk about those as well. Overall, though, in 2019, he finished as quarterback 27, largely in part because he did miss 3 games, and he was really playing through week 1 with mono, so that's not a good thing at all. He had 4 games as a QB1, 5 as a QB2, 4 as a QB3, 273 completions on 441 attempts, 3,000 yards, 62 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. When you look at the adjusted score, he really didn't help you out all that much. 15.5 points per game on 13 games played. His new finish is now only quarterback 26. So that's actually really concerning because the adjusted score specifically, I've talked about this before, the adjusted score specifically is designed to create the new fantasy finishes if you were to miss games. And so the fact that he missed 3 games and he only moves up 1 spot really isn't great. And that's actually really concerning for me. But then once again, you kind of look around at what happened to the Jets last season, and it was pretty much a disaster. So this being the prove-it year for Darnold, because I do think this team has a lot of potential weapons on it, I think it's going to be really telling what the future holds for not only Darnold, but the Jets as well, and what they decide to do in the future. He's currently going as quarterback 25 plus. My ADP doesn't show anything past 24 right now. So you can basically get him free in drafts if you want to spend your last round pick on him. I actually really like him as my number 2 in Superflex because I do think you are going to get that baseline of 15.5. And if this Jets offense does take the step forward that I'm expecting it to, that number is obviously going to go up. So I do like him as my number 2 in Superflex. But overall, I have him ranked as quarterback 28, and I hate saying that because, as I said, I am a Sam Darnold stan. I need to move my mouse over here so I can accurately and easily shift through tabs. So I have Darnold at 28, and it really makes me sad because I love his talent. I think he can put it together. But as we've said time and time again, the quarterback position is so muddied once you get past, the top 10 or so. You're pretty much just taking your shot at the guy that you like. And as much as I love Darnold, there's just a lot of players I think I'd rather have more because I know what I'm going to get week in and week out. I mean, when you look at those weekly finishes, they are all over the place. And I think we've seen it in back-to-back years now where Darnold has had the stretch of just QB1 games. I believe his rookie season, he had a stretch of 3 or 4. And last season, he had a stretch of 3 through weeks. Let's pull that back up. Through weeks 10 through 12, he had 3 straight games as a QB1. So he has shown the potential and he has shown the ability, but I just don't know if you're going to get that consistently. And that worries me just a little bit. But going back to where I have him ranked, I have Jimmy G ranked ahead of him, Derek Carr, Bridgewater, Drew Lock, Minshew, Cousins, and I have him ahead of guys like Haskins, Tyrod, Fitzpatrick, Foles, Tua, Mitch. Like, I just don't think you're confident starting Sam Darnold week in and week out yet. And when you play the quarterback position, like the quarterback position for me, the way that I always view it, outside of the fact that I love rushing quarterbacks, is that it is a position of free points because every quarterback is going to essentially put up 15 points per game every single week. But so if you go off that logic, you're pretty much fine starting Darnold. Like I said, he averaged 15.5. But obviously, because it is considered free points, and at least in my head, I want the upside. I want the guy who I know for sure can give me 25-point games almost consistently. You want that high-end ceiling. And I just don't know if Darnold has that. I'm a bit concerned. Like I said, I'm more so waiting for this year to see what happens. Like I said, this is going to be the prove-it year for Darnold. I want to see what he does with a cast of weapons that I think are going to take a step forward. They added a few pieces that I like. A few players are returning. And I'm just in wait and see mode with Darnold. If he ends up coming out guns blazing, I think he's a better free agent ad than a draft capital ad. And that's not even because it's not like you're spending a high round pick to get him, which I think is interesting. So if you want to take your shot now, you can. But I think I'd rather save that 14, 15, 16 round pick on a flyer, like a high upside wide receiver or a handcuff running back, especially because we are in a COVID year. I think I'd just rather use that draft pick a little bit wiser than taking Sam Darnold with it. However, let's move over to the running back position, and a guy that I love and I hate my ranking for, and that's Leveon Bell. Le'Veon Bell in 2019 finished as running back 21 in standard, 17 in PPR after taking all of 2018 off. His weekly finishes, he had 7 games as a running back 1, 3 games as a 2, and 5 games as a 3. The story for Le'Veon Bell last season was pretty much inconsistency. You never knew what you were going to get from him, and that pretty much tanked your fantasy team. When you look at the final, essentially from weeks 13 through 17, so the final stretch of games, he was a running back 3 in 4 of those 5 games. He was a running back 3 in 4 of those 5 games. And so if you had him in the playoffs and you were able to make it there with him on your team, he killed you. He killed you. It wasn't great. It wasn't pretty for him towards the end of the season. But before that, he was actually pretty good. He had all of his running back 1 performances in the first 12 weeks. He had all 3 of his running back 2 performances in the first 12 weeks, and he only had 1 finish as a running back 3 in that time span. So he was actually really good for you during the first, during the first 3/4 of the season. Le'Veon Bell was really good for your fantasy team, and I really like him this season because to me, he's a guy that a lot of people are down on, and despite that, I think he's actually going to have a much better season. So I'm buying the ADP dip right now. I'll talk about my ranking in a second because I know what I just said kind of contradicts that. But in 2019, he had 245 carries, 789 rushing yards, and that's really where the major dip was, is that he didn't eclipse 1,000 rushing yards or really anywhere close to it. 461 receiving yards on 66 receptions, which is a monster number, and 4 touchdowns. I expect the touchdowns to go up, the rushing yards to go up, the touches to be kind of the same, and that receiving work can potentially go up as well. When you look at the adjusted score, 12.1 points per game on 15 games played. His new finish is running back 21. So let's talk about the ranking in the ADP. His ADP is currently running back 15 at 13.4. I have him ranked as running back 21, and I hate my ranking for him. I actually despise it. I went through earlier, and I tried to find ways to move him up, and I just couldn't. But here's the thing I'm going to say. I will take Leveon Bell at his ADP. So I have like this tier of running backs in my rankings, and this tier of running backs is basically all players that I feel the same way about. I think they all have a really high ceiling and a really high floor as well. It's just a matter of what one are you going, like where do you want to take your shot more or less. And these are all candidates that are kind of bounce back guys. So David Johnson, Leonard Fournette, James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, and I have Mark Ingram split in the middle there. I'm really fascinated by all 5 of those players, and I'll basically take whoever falls to me of that group. I have Le'Veon Bell ranked in the back end of that group, but I don't really care. Like, if you told me, like, you're going to take Le'Veon Bell in the 3rd round at running back 15, probably cool with it. If you, anywhere between that 15 and 21 range, I'm interested. I'm really, really interested in Le'Veon Bell this season, especially just because I do see this offense taking a step forward. We get another year of Darnold with weapons, with just another year with this coaching staff and this front office. I think there is potential for the Jets this season, and I think that's the word that I'm really going to use throughout the majority of this team preview is potential. A lot of things have to break right, but with Le'Veon Bell, I think this is one of the things where nothing really has to break right. He got the volume last season, which I love. I'm a big proponent of volume for fantasy football. I just think volume equates to fantasy points, regardless of what team it comes from. So we got the volume. The offense is going to get better, so that touchdown number is also going to go up, and he's also a monster in the receiving game as well. So I do think that Le'Veon Bell is being extremely undervalued right now, and I'm willing to take him pretty much at his draft cost because I do think he has a chance to finish as a running back 1, and I know I'm going to get a high floor on a week-to-week basis. So please give me Le'Veon Bell in every single draft this season. Up next, let's move to the wide receivers. Jamison Crowder, 34 in standard in 2019, 31 in PPR, 3 games as a wide receiver 1, 4 games as a wide receiver 2, and 0 as a wide receiver 3. 122 targets, 78 catches, 833 yards, oh no, and 6 touchdowns, 9.9 points per game on 16 games played. His new finish is wide receiver 42. Jamison Crowder is what he always has been, and that is a PPR machine. Jamison Crowder pretty much is really he's more so viable in PPR than in standard, and that's just because he is just this short yardage slot guy who's going to see 110 targets every single season. 122 last season, I think, was more so just in part to the Jets being down a lot, and they didn't really have a whole lot of weapons, so that number may come down a bit this season. But regardless, I love Jamison Crowder, especially for this offense as a nice little safety blanket for Sam Darnold. I think his role probably won't change. I think the numbers may come down just a bit. I have him ranked as wide receiver 41. He's being drafted as wide receiver 50 in 1102, and I'll take that every single week once again. With this season in particular, I'm really drafting for depth than anything else, because if my wide receiver 2 gets COVID, I need a guy who I know can slide in and kind of fill that void for the next 2 to 3 weeks or so, depending on how long my wide receiver is missing time. And I know for a fact I can take Jamison Crowder, throw him into my lineup, and not really worry about it. I'm going to get a nice floor, probably 6 to 8 targets every single week, and you're probably going to get 5, 6, 7 catches off those just because they are short intermediate throws. And then in total, just through that, the yardage kind of racks up itself because of the amount of targets and the receptions. I'm actually really curious to see where he ranked as far as targets go. Hang on, let's see. Season receiving targets. So Jamison Crowder was top 20 in targets. He had more targets than Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, DJ Chark, Mike Evans, Kenny Golladay. Like, he put up monster target numbers in this offense last season, and I don't know if that's going to change. So I'm really excited for Jamison Crowder just because he is going so late. And he's also one of those guys like Jarvis Landry who outperforms his ADP every single season. He's always undervalued, and he's basically a free gift for your fantasy team as a great wide receiver 2 for injuries or bye weeks, or you can also start him as a flex week in and week out. Let's move over to a breakout player last season, and that was Breshad Perriman, who really bounced around teams before landing in Tampa Bay last season. He had stints in Baltimore and Cleveland, former first-round pick, I believe. And now he finds his way on a one-year deal with the New York Jets, a team that really does need wide receiver help. In 2019, he finished as wide receiver 43 in standard and 48 in PPR, but that's not really the story. The story is what Perriman did during the last half of the season. And that was basically he won you your fantasy leagues. Let's pull this back up. Just so I can get my data right. Let's go. Perriman. Because I know for a fact I picked him up. Whoa, wrong tab. I know for a fact that I picked him up and I was able to secure my fantasy championship because I started Breshad Perriman in week 17. So let's go. Perriman, there we go. Okay. So here's the important thing, is what happened during the final stretch of games in Tampa Bay once Chris Godwin went down with injury. If you remember, Chris Godwin missed the majority of that final stretch just due to various injuries. Breshad Perriman had, in week 15, he finished as the wide receiver 1. In week 17, he finished as the wide receiver 3. In week 16, he finished as the wide receiver 16. And in week 14, he finished as the wide receiver 16 as well. So that's the story, right? He had 4 of his top 36 finishes all in a 4-week span. And I think the question really becomes, what happens with this Jets offense? Because the thing that really let Breshad Perriman cook was Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's going to be a guy that airs it out, throws for 5,000 yards, throws for 30 touchdowns, throws for 30 interceptions. Like, it doesn't matter. He's just going to gunsling and just whatever happens, happens. Sam Darnold is not that guy, and I'm really curious to see what role they have for Breshad Perriman. This is a team that lost Robbie Anderson in free agency, so they have a hole on the outside. Is Perriman going to start the season as the number 1 option? I think these are all questions that you really have to ask yourself. And if you want to take the late round flyer on Breshad Perriman, I don't hate that because, one, he is playing pretty much for his NFL career at this point, despite coming on strong last season. It is only a 1-year deal with the Jets. This is a team that is missing a true number 1 receiver. And he's not going to cost you anything. He's going outside of the top 69 wide receivers, going past the 15th round. So he's free in drafts. If you want to take your shot here, like I said, I'm not taking Darnold because I'd rather take that 15, 16 round pick and spend it elsewhere on a flyer, on a guy who I think can produce week in and week out. And to me, Breshad Perriman is one of those candidates. When you look at the adjusted score, 8.6 points per game on 14 games played, new finish of wide receiver 52. Once again, I'm not really too concerned about that because the story with Perriman wasn't the first half of the season. It was the back half. It was that final stretch. What can he be in a good offense? Not concerned's not the right word. I'm very intrigued. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm very intrigued what Perriman does this season. What's the role that he has? So if I need to hold Perriman for a week or two just to see and feel it out, I'm fine with that because I'm not relying on him week in and week out. He'll more so serve as a bench slot, as a bench piece during that first stint, and then we'll see what happens and we can go from there. But I really just want to talk about like those 2019 stats, right? He only had 69 targets, caught 36 passes, and was basically averaging, just under 20 yards reception. He was absolutely dominant. He was an incredible deep threat for Jameis Winston. And you really just have to hope that Sam Darnold is going to be a guy who airs it out and is willing to air it out. I think that's the more important question. Is Sam Darnold willing to air it out? Because if he is, Breshad Perriman, I think, is going to easily then move up rankings. And I'm really excited for him because of that, because you are getting him late in drafts pretty much for free. Now, let's move over to, admittedly, one of my favorite rookies this season, Denzel Mims. I'm going to go full screen for this. Whoa, no. Whoa, where did my M50 go? Oh, no. Okay, wait. I need to do a thing here real quick. I was like, my camera turned off. Are we good? We up? Are we up? There we go. We're up. So we're going full screen here for this story. When I was doing my pre-draft process and just kind of evaluating the talent and what teams need, I always kind of look like we all look for guys who fall into great situations, right? And there were a few teams who I felt like needed a number one wide receiver. It was Oakland, it was the Jets, it was the 49ers. There was just this group of players or this group of teams rather, who just needed a spark plug in this offense. If they took a wide receiver, this wide receiver has the potential to come in and erupt for fantasy football, and not only just for fantasy football, but real life football as well. And then I start watching tape, right? And I'm like, all right, let's go through some of the tape and some of the talent coming out in this draft, because the wide receivers in this draft are so fun and so exciting, and there's so many good ones, right? So I start watching Denzel Mims tape. And I need to pull up my notes here. Can I do this? Where's my initial rookie notes? Come on. All right, let's pull up. Okay. My notes for Denzel Mims are, quote, massive human being, jump ball savior, incredible potential, but may lack play-breaking ability. For whatever reason, it looks like on tape he moves kind of slow, but then you actually get into like the scores and his stats and just his breakdown, his measurables, and this dude's just an absolute beast. This dude is so fucking good, and he's still so raw of a talent. You know, like they were still trying to expand his route tree, because Baylor, you pretty much only run like 3 or 4 routes and that's it. So his technique still isn't the best, but he's still just this dominant freak athlete of a machine, of a person, of a specimen. And when he fell to the Jets in the second round, I screamed. I fist pumped, I was yelling at the top of my lungs. I was so happy. Because you are looking at a guy who truly profiles as an X wide receiver, as a ball-dominant pass catcher, as just a guy who just profiles as a number 1 in this league. So let's go over to Denzel Mims right now. Denzel Mims, I say all of that to say his player comparison is Calvin Johnson. I'm going to say, this is my hottest NFL take for the season. Denzel Mims is going to be Calvin Johnson. I am saying it. I am proclaiming it. I will not back down from this. Now let me tell you some stats here, some measurables. All right, Denzel Mims, 6'3", 207, and honestly, he probably weighs more than that. Like, this dude is just a massive human being. Go watch his tape, and he just towers over defensive backs or safeties that he was playing against in the Big 12. This dude is 6'3", 207, and runs a 4.38 40. That is in the 96th percentile of athletes. We're going to stick on these measurables just a little bit, because I do have the extended scores pulled up here. His speed score is 115.6, and basically what this is like the adjusted speed score that kind of factors in your weight and your size. That is also in the 96th percentile. His burst score, 131 flat, in the 90th percentile. And then his catch radius is 10.34 in the 95th percentile. This dude is just an absolute monster. And now let me pull up Calvin Johnson, right? Calvin Johnson, Megatron, one of the best wide receivers in NFL history, abruptly retired during this prime of his NFL career for some inexplicable reason. Let me read you his 40, his speed score, and his burst score. He ran a 4.35 in the 98th percentile, so 3 shades faster than Mims. His speed score was 139 in the 100th percentile, so he's the top of the top. Like I said, Mims is in the 96, so there is some comparability there. And then his burst score is 141.8 in the 99th percentile. Like I said, Mims was in the 90th percentile. So there is a little bit of a difference there, but you can see the comps. I don't have the catch radius up, but if you watch any sort of Megatron tape, you know that his catch radius is massive as well. So I see the vision. I see the vision here. Like, finally, the Jets are going to get a number 1 receiver that's going to be consistent, that's going to be good. They pair him with a young quarterback in Sam Darnold, who hasn't had a lick of this type of talent on his team for the past 2 seasons. I'm so excited for Denzel Mims, and I really was questioning how I needed to talk about Mims because of the fact that I still haven't had my rookie draft yet, and I don't know how many people from my Dynasty League are going to be listening to this, and this has been one of the things that have been really interesting to me, is what's my adjustment going to look like when I start doing these kinds of videos, when I start talking about players that I love, that players that I'm targeting, especially in a rookie draft, right, where it's not like, especially in a rookie draft in a dynasty league, should I say, where if you don't get this guy, like you probably might not have him for for the entirety of his career, right? This isn't a redraft league where I can just get him next year. No, like I won't have him at all, most likely. So I'm gunning for Mims in the second round. I have multiple second round picks, multiple early second round picks. If you want to take your shot on a Jets wide receiver, I'd rather take it on Mims than Perriman, just because I'm so excited for the potential of what Mims is, just because he does profile as a number one wide receiver. We didn't even talk about his stats from last season. 107 targets, 66 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Like, this dude is Calvin Johnson. I actually have Calvin Johnson's final year at Georgia Tech. At Georgia Tech in 2006, Calvin Johnson's season, he had 138 targets, 76 receptions. So when you just look at that alone, he had 30 more targets and only 10 more catches than Mims. So that's really interesting to me. 1,200 yards, like Megatron is Megatron. He's going to both put up yardage and touchdowns. And he had 15 touchdowns. So there, like you can see the comparisons there, like between the two. Their numbers are so on track. Maybe Mims doesn't reach Calvin Johnson levels, but I think the path is there to almost be Calvin Johnson light if he doesn't reach the max potential for him this season. His ADP is currently in redraft. His wide receiver is outside the top 69, so same thing as Perriman, outside the 15th round. I have him ranked as wide receiver 62, and it's really just a matter of like just seeing what this offense is, what's his role going to be during his rookie season. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Mims. I know I have him ranked low there, but it's just one of those things. Let's just find out. Let's just find out. I'm willing to take my late round pick on him, my late round shot, and let the chips fall where they may. But I'm so excited for the career of Denzel Mims. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with the tight end position. Chris Herndon, who just had an atrocious 2019 season, so we're going to look at the 2018 stats. And the reason why we're using 2018 instead of 2019. First off, he was suspended for the first 4 games. Came back, and then was injured, and then pretty much missed all of the season, or was damn near all. I think he missed 90% of the season. Made his way back onto the field, I believe, during the final few games or so. And it was just tough sledding for Chris Herndon. Found himself in the doghouse of Adam Gase. And 2019 was just a lost season. So instead we had to focus on 2018, where he finished as wide receiver or as tight end 15 in both standard and PPR. And 2018 was also his rookie season as well. 4 games as a tight end 1, 5 as a tight end 2, and 2 as a tight end 3. 56 targets, 39 receptions, 502 yards, and 4 touchdowns, 6.7 points per game on 14 games played. His new finish is tight end 14. His current ADP is tight end 22, going into 14th round. I have him ranked as tight end 18. If you want to take your shot on Herndon, by all means do so. I actually love him as a player, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know how you see this trade. I traded Chris Herndon in Dynasty this offseason for a second-round pick. And that's simply just because I do have Mark Andrews and I have Jack Doyle, and I think our tight ends, there is a lot of potential tight ends to be claimed off the waiver wire this season. So I felt like there was enough flexibility where I can move Chris Herndon and I can find a way to get back an asset or two in return, just through some roster construction moves. But I do love the talent of Chris Herndon. I think he's a super talented tight end. The numbers that he put up during his rookie season were great. Like, a lot of tight ends are known for not putting up high-level production during the rookie season, and 500 yards is kind of like that marker. Like, if you're able to cross 500 receiving yards during your rookie season as a tight end, like, that is considered to be really good. And he's just a big dude. He had 4 touchdowns. If you want to take your shot on Herndon, like, that late in draft, I think Herndon, to me, like, there are a few other guys who I've talked about, whether it is Hayden Hurst or Jonnu Smith. Like, those are the late round guys that I've really been targeting in drafts. But Chris Herndon can make that case, just because he's coming off of the letdown season. A lot of people were expecting him to break out last year, and it just never fully materialized. So I think Chris Herndon is the perfect example of being a post-hype sleeper. I just love the Jets. For some reason, I feel like the Jets are being so undervalued in every single facet, besides Darnold probably, just because I just can't get myself there with him, despite how much I like him. But like Leveon Bell probably being undervalued, Crowder, Perriman, and Mims all being undervalued because somebody's gonna have to step up and cement themselves into the wide receiver one for that team. And if it's just Crowder in general, he's just going to be a PPR guy who plays really well out of the slot every single year. And then Herndon, just a post-hype sleeper who a lot of people were expecting big things from. It just didn't come to reality last season for one reason or another. It was actually multiple reasons. And now we get the opportunity, fresh start, another year in the offense, another year with Darnold, red zone body. I'm ready for Chris Herndon. The only concern is if he is stuck in Adam Gase's doghouse, because Adam Gase just has the tendency to not let talent flourish on his teams, and that is always a concern. But I think that's going to do it for our Jets preview, all 32. We got 11 more of these to go on bulk recording. I got the Dolphins and the Bills to film later on today, so those will be out within the coming days or so. I think Monday and Tuesday is when those will be releasing. So be sure to hit that subscribe button down below for that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, you can follow me on all social media at FFVulture, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, wherever you find social media content. That's where you can find me. And of course, the website is ffvulture.com. I need to take a sip of this water later on in just a moment once I'm done recording this. All in all, I love the Jets. I'm so excited. I felt like, especially when I started talking about Mims, I felt like you really felt the excitement come out. This team can be so good. This team can be so good. I just don't know if they're going to be able to put it together. So I guess we'll find out in just about a month or so. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. Later.